So this is the second video in Key Area 2.5 looking at growth and development. And here we're going to be looking at human growth and development. And in the same way as plants, humans aren't able to grow to their maximum height or weight if they don't get enough food or the right vitamins and minerals. So it has to be the right kinds of food, and this is called a balanced diet. And you probably will know this already, that a balanced diet has to have the correct quantities of each of the main food groups. We need lots of some types of foods and only a little of others. So on this food triangle that's here, or food pyramid, here it's saying we should eat more of the foods here at the bottom and less of those that are up at the top. So you don't want to be eating a lot of fats and oil and salt and sugar, but you do want to be eating carbohydrates and then fruit and vegetables and then some meat. These are going to give you your carbohydrates, these are going to give you your vitamins and fibres and minerals, and these are going to give you your proteins. But you do still need to have some fats in your diet because there are things that your body does that needs fats. So just looking at chemicals that are actually in foods, well, you've got the three major groups. There's carbohydrates, that's your starches and your sugars, and they're used for energy. So things like bread and cereals and so on, they've got starch and sugars in them. Fats can also be used for energy, and it tends to be that fats will be stored for energy. And proteins, they're used for growth and repair of cells and tissues. So you get protein from fish and meat and eggs and so on. As well as these foods, you also need to have foods that have got small quantities of vitamins and minerals for health. And fiber's got to be there because fiber helps your gut to move properly. And water is needed too for chemical reactions. So you'll have this table that's in your notes. You'll be able to fill that in from the information that I've just given you. So we're going to go on and have a look at vitamins and minerals. And you need vitamins to stay healthy and to help you fight diseases and to maintain the body or repair the body. And vitamins that are important are things like vitamins A. Vitamin A helps with your eyesight and things. Vitamin C that helps you fight against a disease called scurvy. And there's also there's vitamin B, vitamin D, vitamin K. It's very important to help with blood clotting and things like that. You also need minerals, calcium to help with bone growth, and iron to help make red blood cells, because iron makes up the substance called hemoglobin that helps carry oxygen around the body. They're needed in small quantities, but they are very, very important to maintain the health of the body, and a lack of any of these will result in a disease or in an illness. And here's some examples of diseases if you've got a lack of vitamin C, for example here. Vitamin C, if you've not got it, you can suffer from a disease called scurvy. And scurvy can result in your blood not clotting properly, or result in your skin not healing properly and things, and you can become very, very ill with it, and it can actually kill you. So vitamin C, things with oranges, lemons, all these things, they're high in vitamin C. And it used to be a disease that affected sailors when they went to sea for a long time and they didn't have fresh meat or fresh fruit and vegetables. Then they would end up lacking in vitamin C. And you get a lot of that vitamin C, as I've said, from things like oranges and lemons and limes as well. And it used to be they called sailors limeys because they would take limes off to sea with them so that they could suck them to make sure that they got the vitamin C and they wouldn't suffer from the disease scurvy. A lack of vitamin D. Vitamin D is useful for being able to make strong, healthy bones. And if you don't have enough vitamin D, then it results in a disease called rickets. And that means that the bones are soft. And what actually happens over in this diagram that's over here, is that the legs will start to bow because the bones that are up here will actually bend. And a lack of vitamin D can be sorted from the diet. It used to be when I was a little girl, you used to get milk when you were at school, and that was to help to combat against having low vitamin D and to help stop getting this. And also, if you get lots of sunshine, sunshine's good for being able to help your body produce vitamin D, but obviously that's not something we get a lot of in Scotland. Now, a lack of iron in the diet can cause a condition which is called anemia, and that reduces the number of red blood cells because iron is needed to make red blood cells. As I've said before, it's got a molecule in it called hemoglobin, and iron makes that up. And you can find iron in things like liver, and in some vegetables are high in iron, things like spinach, and some cereals have got iron in them as well. Obviously, if you don't get enough food at all, then you can end up with a situation where you've got stunted growth and serious health problems. And of course, in this country and in America, there's problems with obesity because there's too much food. But there's some places in the world where there just isn't enough and people are starving. So people who are going hungry all the time are likely to be underweight. They'll weigh less than an average person of their size. And if a child is malnourished, then their growth is stunted and they might be very much shorter than the average. And in developing countries, 1 out of 4 children younger than the age of 5 are underweight. These are some symptoms of starvation, of either early starvation or prolonged starvation. And I don't need to read them out to you. You can always have a look at them. So for example, here's an example of an early starvation situation where you can feel dizzy because of fluid changes and loss of volume in the blood, and you can become dehydrated. If you've got prolonged starvation, and that's one of these things here, wasting in muscles and fat, and the bones become very prominent. 60 days without any food can result in death from infection or from heart failure. You can last a lot longer without food than you can without water. But ultimately, it is something that starvation will result in death. Now, when a baby is developing in the womb, then in order for it to be able to grow properly, it needs to get all the necessary nutrients and oxygen. Obviously, once it's born, it gets those by eating them, but those nutrients and oxygen need to get to the baby when they're inside the mother's womb. And that's delivered through the placenta and the umbilical cord that comes from the mother's blood. So the umbilical cord, you can see it here, it has got blood vessels that are running through it that run from the baby to the mother. And the placenta, which is here on this diagram, I'll do it in blue there, this part here is the placenta. That is where the other end of the cord is connected and blood vessels run right the way through the placenta. So what happens is that oxygen will come through that placenta into the umbilical cord, down these vessels and into the baby, and so will vitamins and minerals and sugars for the energy the baby needs to develop, and the vitamins it needs for strong, healthy bones and so on. And then any waste products will travel back through that umbilical cord to the placenta and then into the mother's bloodstream and then be carried out of the mother. Now, because of this, a pregnant woman needs to make sure that she's got a diet which supplies all the things that a developing baby needs. And she also has to make sure that she avoids taking anything into her body that will harm the development of her baby, because things will cross across the placenta into the baby. So we're going to have a look at what substances should pregnant women avoid from taking. Well, smoking is one that should be avoided whilst pregnant, and that's because there's this substance here called carbon monoxide in cigarette smoke, and that results in less oxygen getting to the baby. So the baby can have brain damage if there's a lack of oxygen. And nicotine causes less glucose to get to the baby, so that slows down the growth of the baby, and so does the lack of carbon monoxide. So on average, babies born to mothers who smoke are much lighter than those of mothers who do not smoke. And it could, as I said, if it's a very, very heavy smoker, actually have an effect on the baby's development. The effects of alcohol on fetal development. Now, if a woman drinks too much during a pregnancy, then that can lead to that alcohol crossing to the baby, and it can damage the brain, cause learning difficulties and remembering things. It can affect vision and hearing. It can also affect the heart and the kidney and the lungs and the bones and the fingers. These are really, really extreme cases, and might not be formed properly either. And it also affects the growth of the baby too. And they say it's safest not to drink any alcohol during pregnancy. And if a woman is planning and becoming pregnant, then it's best to stop drinking. If she is somebody who does drink, it's best to stop drinking before they get pregnant. Now, drugs can have an effect on a baby as well. And so a pregnant woman has to be very careful about what drugs that she takes when she's pregnant. It is possible to take paracetamol or antibiotics, but again, a woman has to be very careful. Paracetamol is a powerful drug, although we use it all the time, and you can't take too much of it, otherwise it damages the liver. That's not just a pregnant woman, that's anybody, but obviously if a woman who's pregnant takes too much paracetamol, that won't be good for her or the baby. There are other drugs that are illegal, things like cannabis and heroin, and they will affect the baby. If a mother is taking heroin, the heroin can cross to the baby, and the baby can actually be born with a heroin addiction. A drug that you probably won't have heard about, but I heard about it when I was younger. It was a drug here. It's called thalidomide. You don't need to know about this at National 5, but or National 4. It just helps you to know some of the things that can affect an unborn baby. And this was a drug that was produced in the 1950s for women to take in order to stop morning sickness. Sometimes when women are pregnant, they feel very, very sick in the morning. And lots of women took that drug until it was started to discover that a lot of babies will be born malformed, where there was some sort of limb malformation. The baby was perfectly normal development-wise, and in brain function and so on, but there was this malfunction of the limbs, and thalidomide eventually became illegal to give to pregnant women. It wasn't used. It is still used nowadays under very controlled conditions for some other diseases. It does have some uses still, but it's never ever used for pregnant women. Smoking or drinking alcohol during pregnancy also increases the risk of a baby being born prematurely, that is, being early. And premature babies can have health issues which sometimes can affect them through their whole life. And you'll see some of the figures that are here in this graph here, looking at the percentage of women here that drank alcohol and the percentage that didn't. And you'll see that more of them had premature births, or women that drank alcohol as opposed to those that didn't. More of the babies were born underweight.